The year was 2147, and humanity had come a long way from the small blue planet it once called home. Stars that once twinkled in the night sky were now destinations on maps. Planets orbiting distant suns had become colonies, mines, or military outposts. Humanity had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, but with expansion came division. Old rivalries from Earth followed them into space, and new conflicts emerged among the stars. It was a fragile balance, held together by treaties, alliances, and the ever-present threat of war. Lieutenant Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Dauntless, staring out at the endless expanse of space. The ship was one of the most advanced in the fleet, sleek and powerful, bristling with weapons capable of reducing an asteroid to dust. Yet, despite the might of the vessel beneath his feet, Ryan felt uneasy. He wasn't like the others. While many of his comrades saw the galaxy as a battlefield waiting for orders, Ryan saw it as a place full of possibilities. He believed in talking things out, finding common ground, and avoiding bloodshed if at all possible. His superiors often dismissed his views as naive, but Ryan didn't care. He wanted to make a difference, even if it meant going against the grain. On board the Dauntless, life moved at a steady pace. Crew members went about their duties, checking systems, running diagnostics, and preparing for whatever mission awaited them next. Among them was Lieutenant Melissa Drake, a skilled pilot known for her sharp wit and quick reflexes. She had earned her reputation flying combat missions in some of the most dangerous corners of the galaxy. But behind her confident exterior lay scars both physical and emotional that she rarely spoke about. Melissa kept to herself, preferring solitude over conversation, but she respected Ryan's optimism, even if she thought it was misplaced. Commander Alex Monroe, on the other hand, represented everything Ryan disliked about the military mindset. Monroe was efficient, calculating, and unyielding. To him, every problem had a solution, and that solution usually involved force. He had risen through the ranks quickly, earning accolades for his tactical brilliance. Still, there was something cold about him, as though he viewed people not as individuals but as pieces on a chessboard. Ryan tried to avoid crossing paths with Monroe whenever possible, knowing their opposing philosophies would only lead to arguments. Back on Earth, Dr. Claire Bennett sat hunched over her workstation, poring over data streams and sensor readings. She was an astrophysicist, one of the brightest minds in her field, and she had spent years studying anomalies in deep space. Recently, her instruments had picked up strange energy signatures coming from a distant exoplanet named Xerxes -9. At first, she thought it might be interference or a glitch in her equipment, but the patterns were too consistent, too deliberate to ignore. Whatever was causing those signals wasn't natural, it was artificial. Claire submitted her findings to the Federation Council, hoping they would send a team to investigate. Instead, her report was met with skepticism. Some officials laughed it off as paranoia, while others accused her of chasing ghosts. Frustrated but undeterred, Claire continued her research, convinced that she was onto something big. Little did she know how right she was. The piece or semblance of it that humanity had maintained for decades shattered overnight when tragedy struck. A colony on Proxima Centauri, one of the oldest and most prosperous settlements outside Earth, was wiped out in a single devastating attack. One moment, the colony buzzed with activity. The next, it was gone, reduced to rubble and ash. No warning, no demands, just destruction. News of the attack spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves through the Federation. Panic gripped the population as rumors swirled about who or what was responsible. Initial investigations revealed no survivors, only eerie silence where thousands of lives had once thrived. The attackers left behind no trace, no debris, nothing to identify them. All that remained were faint traces of exotic energy residue, unlike anything seen before. Admiral Hayes, commander of the United Federation fleet, wasted no time responding to the crisis. Gathering his top advisors, he ordered an immediate investigation into the incident. Intelligence reports suggested that the energy signatures found at the scene matched those detected near Xerxes-9. Though skeptical of Claire's earlier claims, Hayes couldn't ignore the evidence staring him in the face. If Xerxes-9 held answers, then it was imperative to act fast. Within hours, the USS Dauntless received its orders. Captain Lewis briefed the crew, explaining the gravity of the situation. "We're heading to Xerxes-9, he announced, his voice steady but firm. "Our mission is simple. Find out who or what did this, and stop them." Ryan listened intently, his heart pounding. This wasn't just another routine assignment. Something about this mission felt different, heavier. As the ship prepared to depart, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into unknown territory, venturing toward a danger they might not fully understand. As the Dauntless entered hyperspace, the crew settled into their roles. Melissa ran pre-flight checks on the shuttles, ensuring they were ready for any eventuality. Monroe reviewed tactical plans, mapping out strategies for potential encounters. Meanwhile, Ryan wandered the corridors, lost in thought. He wondered what they would find on Xerxes-9. Would it be ruins, alien artifacts, or something far more sinister? Claire, meanwhile, received unexpected news. Her expertise had caught the attention of Admiral Hayes, who personally requested her presence aboard the Dauntless. Though hesitant at first, Claire accepted, realizing this was her chance to prove her theories correct. She packed her belongings hastily and boarded the ship just before departure. When she arrived, Ryan greeted her warmly, sensing her nervousness. "You'll do fine," he assured her. "We need someone like you, someone who sees things differently." Claire managed a weak smile, grateful for his encouragement. Deep down, however, she couldn't shake the fear gnawing at her. What if she was wrong? What if Xerxes-9 held nothing but disappointment and danger? Hours turned into days as the Dauntless hurtled through the void. The closer they got to their destination, the thicker the tension became. Conversations grew sparse, replaced by quiet. Determination. Everyone knew the stakes. This wasn't just about uncovering the truth anymore. It was about survival. For humanity. For everyone. Finally, Xerxes-9 loomed ahead, a dark orb shrouded in swirling clouds of electromagnetic interference. Its surface was barren, scarred by eons of cosmic bombardment. Yet, despite its desolate appearance, sensors indicated unusual activity beneath the crust. Something or someone was down there. Captain Lewis ordered a scan of the planet's atmosphere. Results confirmed what they already suspected. Landing would be risky. The electromagnetic field surrounding Xerxes-9 could interfere with their systems, leaving them vulnerable. But retreat wasn't an option. They had come too far to turn back now. Ryan volunteered to join the reconnaissance team tasked with exploring the surface. Melissa raised an eyebrow when she heard his name on the roster. "You sure about this?" she asked, her tone laced with concern. "It's not exactly a walk in the park." "I'll be fine," Ryan replied, though he wasn't entirely convinced himself. Still, he couldn't sit idly by while others risked their lives. This was his chance to contribute, to make a difference. With preparations complete, the shuttle detached from the Dauntless and descended toward the planet below. As they pierced the turbulent atmosphere, static crackled over the comms. Visibility dropped to near zero, forcing Melissa to rely solely on instruments to guide them safely to the surface. When they finally touched down, the world outside was eerily silent. Stepping onto Xerxes-9, Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. The air was thick with dust, and the ground crunched underfoot. In the distance, jagged peaks jutted into the sky, casting long shadows across the landscape. Scanning the area, the team spotted what appeared to be ruins partially buried beneath layers of rock and ash. "Over here," Ryan called, motioning for the others to follow. As they approached, the scale of the structure became apparent. Massive. Stone blocks formed walls covered in intricate carvings, weathered by time. Holes gaped where windows or doors might have been, inviting them inside. Cautiously, they entered the ruins. Inside, the air was cool and still. Faint lights flickered along the walls, remnants of ancient technology struggling to function. Then, they found it a holographic projection frozen mid-display. With some tinkering, Claire managed to reactivate it. Images sprang to life, showing scenes of a thriving civilization. Tall, slender beings moved gracefully through bustling cities, their faces serene. But the tranquility was short-lived. Suddenly, the images shifted, depicting fire and chaos. Ships descended from the sky, unleashing beams of energy that vaporized everything in their path. The beams fled in terror, but escape was futile. Their world burned, consumed by an enemy relentless and merciless. This can't be real," Ryan whispered, his voice trembling. "It is," Claire said grimly. "Whoever these people were, they didn't stand a chance." Before they could process what they'd seen, alarms blared. Sensors detected movement outside. Someone or something was approaching. Fast. The alarms blared louder, cutting through the eerie silence of the ruins. Ryan's heart raced as he turned to the others. "We need to move, now." His voice was calm but urgent, masking the fear bubbling inside him. The team scrambled to gather their equipment, stuffing scanners and data tablets into their packs. Claire hesitated for a moment, her eyes glued to the flickering hologram. She reached out, tapping a few commands on the ancient console, hoping to download more information before they had to leave. "Claire, we don't have time," Melissa shouted, her hand already on the hilt of her sidearm. She stood near the entrance, scanning the horizon through the cracked doorway. Shadows moved outside, distorted by the swirling dust and static-filled air. Whatever was out there wasn't human. "I just need 30 seconds, Claire replied, her fingers flying over the controls. Her voice wavered slightly, betraying her anxiety. Ryan stepped closer, keeping one eye on the door and the other on her progress. He trusted her instincts, but every second felt like an eternity. "Make it 10, Melissa snapped, her tone sharp. She raised her weapon, aiming at the opening. The faint hum of machinery grew louder, accompanied by rhythmic thuds footsteps. Heavy ones. They weren't alone anymore. Ryan glanced at the rest of the team. Lieutenant Harris, a burly engineer with a knack for fixing anything mechanical, stood ready with his rifle. Private Daniels, the youngest member of the group, clutched his scanner tightly, his knuckles white. Fear etched lines across his face, but he held his ground. Ryan felt a pang of guilt. They shouldn't have brought someone so inexperienced on this mission. Yet here they were, all counting on each other to survive. Finally, Claire let out a triumphant sigh. "Got it." She yanked the data drive from the console and shoved it into her pocket. "Let's go." The team bolted toward the exit, moving as quickly as the uneven terrain allowed. Outside, the scene had changed dramatically. Sleek, insect-like drones hovered in formation, their metallic bodies gleaming despite the dim light. Each one bristled with weapons, glowing red sensors tracking their movements. Behind them loomed larger figures, tall, biomechanical constructs that seemed part machine, part organism. Their limbs clicked and whirred as they advanced, exuding menace. "Take cover," Ryan yelled, diving behind a pile of rubble. The others followed suit, scrambling for shelter as the drones opened fire. Bright beams of energy lanced through the air, striking rocks and kicking up clouds of dust. The sound was deafening. Mix of explosions and screeching metal. Melissa peeked around the corner, firing off a few shots. Her aim was true, disabling one of the smaller drones instantly. But for every one she took down, 2 more appeared. "We can't stay here," she shouted over the chaos. "They'll flank us in minutes," Ryan nodded, his mind racing. They needed a plan and fast. The shuttle was too far away, and the enemy was blocking their escape route. If they tried to run straight for it, they'd be cut down before they made it halfway. He scanned the area, looking for any advantage they could exploit. Then he sought a narrow crevice leading deeper into the ruins. It wasn't much, but it might buy them some time. "Follow me," Ryan ordered, pointing toward the crevice. Without waiting for confirmation, he sprinted forward, weaving between blasts of energy. The others followed close behind, dodging debris and returning fire when they could. Harris fired his rifle in short bursts, keeping the enemy at bay while Claire and Daniel stumbled after him. Melissa brought up the rear, laying down suppressive fire as they retreated. One of the larger constructs stepped forward, raising a massive claw-like appendage. With a single swipe, it sent a boulder flying toward them. Ryan dove to the side just in time, feeling the rush of air as the rock smashed into the ground where he'd been standing moments earlier. "Keep moving," Melissa urged, her voice strained. She fired again, hitting the construct's leg joint. Sparks flew, but the creature barely slowed. Its durability was terrifying. As they reached the crevice, Ryan slid inside first, helping Claire and Daniels squeeze through the tight space. Harris followed, still firing blindly over his shoulder. Finally, Melissa backed into the opening, her weapon trained on the entrance until the last possible second. As soon as she was clear, she turned and ran, joining the others as they pressed deeper into the ruins. The passage twisted and turned, growing darker with each step. The sounds of battle faded behind them, replaced by the soft crunch of gravel underfoot. For now at least, they had escaped immediate danger. But none of them believed they were safe. Ryan stopped briefly to catch his breath, leaning against a crumbling wall. "Everyone okay?" he asked, glancing at each member of the team. Nods came slowly, though Daniels looked pale and shaken. Claire adjusted her glasses, her hands trembling slightly as she checked the integrity of the data drive. Harris reloaded his rifle, his expression grim. Melissa, ever vigilant, kept watch for signs of pursuit. "We can't stay here long," Melissa said, breaking the tense silence. "If those things are as advanced as they seem, they'll track us eventually." "She's right," Harris agreed. "We need to find another way out, or at least somewhere defensible." Ryan nodded, thinking hard. They couldn't head back the way they came, not with those drones waiting for them. That left only one option: push further into the ruins and hope they found something useful. Maybe another exit, or perhaps even more clues about what happened to this civilization. Either way, staying put wasn't an option. "Let's keep moving," Ryan decided. "Stay alert and stick together." The group pressed onward, navigating the labyrinthine corridors with caution. The walls bore more carvings, intricate designs that told stories of a people long gone. Some depicted scenes of prosperity and innovation, while others showed despair and destruction. Claire paused occasionally to study them, her curiosity overriding her fear. "This place, it's like a tomb," she murmured. "A warning." "A warning for who?" Daniels asked nervously. "Us? Maybe," Claire admitted. "Or maybe whoever did this wanted to make sure no one forgot." Their conversation was interrupted by a low rumble. The ground beneath their feet shifted slightly, causing everyone to freeze. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and cracks spider-webbed along the walls. "What was that?" Harris demanded, gripping his rifle tighter. "Could be structural instability." Claire suggested, "These ruins are ancient. They're probably not designed to handle much stress." "Great," Melissa muttered sarcastically. "Because we didn't have enough problems already." Before anyone could respond, a loud clang echoed through the corridor, metal scraping against stone. The sound sent chills down their spines. "They're here," Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible. "Move!" The team broke into a run, their footsteps echoing loudly in the confined space. The rumbling grew louder, more intense. Pieces of the ceiling began to collapse, forcing them to dodge falling debris. Ahead, the passage widened into a large chamber. Sunlight streamed through holes in the roof, illuminating a strange structure. At its center dot, it looked like a control panel, similar to the one they'd seen earlier, but larger and more elaborate. Symbols glowed faintly on its surface, pulsing with an inner light. Claire approached cautiously, her eyes wide with fascination. This could be important," she said, reaching out to touch it. "No," Ryan grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "We don't know what it does." "It's our best chance," Claire insisted. "If we can activate it, maybe it'll help us." "Or kill us," Melissa interjected dryly. Before they could argue further, a shadow fell over the chamber. Turning, they saw one of the biomechanical constructs stepping into view. Its glowing eyes locked onto them, and its claws twitched menacing of anticipation. There was no escape this time. Ryan looked around desperately, weighing their options. Fight or surrender? Neither seemed promising. Then he noticed something, a lever embedded in the wall near the control panel. It looked old, unused for centuries. But it might be their only hope. "Cover me," Ryan shouted, sprinting toward the lever. Melissa and Harris opened fire, drawing the construct's attention away from him. Bullets ricocheted off its armored shell, doing little damage but buying Ryan precious seconds. He reached the lever and pulled with all his strength. Nothing happened at first. Then, with a groan of protesting metal, the floor beneath the construct gave way. A hidden trapdoor opened, sending the creature plummeting into darkness below. The team stared in stunned silence as the rumbling subsided and the chamber fell quiet once more. "What just happened?" Daniels asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think we triggered some kind of defense mechanism," Claire said, awe evident in her tone. "This place was built to protect itself." Ryan exhaled sharply, relief washing over him. But he knew better than to celebrate yet. "Good work, everyone, but we're not out of this yet. Let's keep moving." With renewed determination, the team pressed on, knowing that survival depended on every decision they made. Each step brought them closer to answers, but also deeper into danger. The chamber fell silent after the construct disappeared into the abyss below. For a moment, the team simply stood there, catching their breath and processing what had just happened. Ryan leaned against the wall, his hands resting on his knees. As he tried to steady his breathing, Melissa kept her weapon trained on the gaping hole in the floor, her eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Claire examined the control panel again, her curiosity overriding her fear. "This place. It's alive," she murmured, running her fingers over the glowing symbols. Or at least it was designed to react. That trapdoor wasn't random, it was intentional. "Great," Melissa said sarcastically. "So we're wandering around some ancient death trap. Just what I signed up for." Ryan straightened up, shaking off his exhaustion. "We don't have time to argue about this. Whatever that thing was, there are probably more of them out there. We need to find a way back to the shuttle, or at least figure out what these aliens were trying to tell us." Claire nodded, her focus still on the panel. "This might help. If I can decode these symbols, maybe we can learn something useful. There could be a map, or even a way to contact whoever built this place." Harris stepped closer, adjusting the strap of his rifle. "You think those aliens are still around?" "From what we saw in the hologram, they didn't exactly get a happy ending." "No," Ryan admitted. "But if we can understand their tech, maybe we can use it against whatever attacked us. And maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to stop them before they reach Earth." Daniels, who had been unusually quiet since the encounter with the construct, spoke up hesitantly. What if we're wrong? What if this isn't just some old alien civilization? What if those things outside are the same ones that destroyed this place?" The question hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. No one wanted to admit it, but Daniels had a point. The sleek drones and biomechanical constructs hunting them bore little resemblance to the tall, graceful beings depicted in the holograms. Something else had come here, wiped out the original inhabitants, and left behind only ruins and traps. "We'll worry about that later," Ryan said firmly. "Right now, our priority is survival. Claire, see what you can do with that panel. The rest of us will keep watch." Claire knelt beside the panel, pulling out her tablet to cross-reference the symbols with the data she'd downloaded earlier. As she worked, the others spread out, keeping an eye on the entrances to the chamber. Melissa stayed near the hole, occasionally kicking loose stones into the darkness below to test its depth. Harris checked the walls for structural weaknesses. While Ryan and Daniels guarded the main corridor, minutes passed in tense silence. Then, Claire let out a soft gasp. "I think I've got something," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "These symbols, they're instructions. They're telling us how to activate the system." "Activate what?" Melissa asked, turning toward her. "Another trap?" "I don't think so," Claire replied. "Based on the context, it looks like this controls some kind of communication array. If I'm right, we might be able to send a signal to the Dauntless or even back to Earth." Ryan exchanged a glance with Melissa. It was risky, but it was also their best chance of getting help. "Do it," he said. "But be careful. We don't know what else this place might throw at us." Claire nodded and began inputting commands. Into the panel, the symbols lit up one by one, casting an eerie glow across the chamber. A low hum filled the air, growing louder as the system powered up. Suddenly, a beam of light shot upward through one of the holes in the ceiling, piercing the sky above. "That should do it," Claire said, stepping back. "If anyone's listening, they'll pick up the signal." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and cracks spread along the walls. The activation of the panel had triggered another reaction, this time far less subtle. "They know we're here," Melissa growled, raising her weapon. "Let's move." The team bolted for the nearest exit, retracing their steps through the winding corridors. Behind them, the ruins groaned and shifted, collapsing under the strain of centuries-old mechanisms. Chunks of stone tumbled from above, forcing them to dodge and weave as they ran. Claire clutched the data drive tightly, unwilling to lose the precious information they'd risked so much to obtain. As they emerged into the open air, the scene was chaos. Drones swarmed overhead, their red sensors locking onto the fleeing humans. Larger constructs stomped across the landscape, closing in from all sides. The shuttle was visible in the distance, but reaching it seemed impossible. "We're not going to make it," Daniels shouted, panic rising in his voice. "Yes, we are," Ryan snapped. "Stay focused, follow me." He led the group in a zigzag pattern, using the terrain to evade the drone's line of fire. Melissa covered their retreat, firing bursts of energy into the swarm. Her shots weren't enough to destroy them, but they created enough confusion to buy the team some breathing room. Harris joined in, aiming for the construct's joints and weak points. One of them stumbled, giving the group a narrow path forward. Claire tripped over a rock, falling to her knees. Ryan spun around instantly, grabbing her arm and hauling her to her feet. "Keep moving," he urged, shoving her ahead of him. She nodded, her face pale but determined. They reached the shuttle just as the first construct closed in. Its massive claws swung downward, narrowly missing them as they scrambled aboard. Melissa took the pilot's seat, her hands flying over the controls. The engines roared to life, lifting the shuttle off the ground just as the construct slammed into the side of the craft. "Hold on," Melissa yelled, banking sharply to avoid another attack. The shuttle rocked violently, throwing everyone off balance. Claire clung to her seat, clutching the data drive like a lifeline. Daniels whimpered, Softly, his eyes squeezed shut, Ryan braced himself against the wall, watching the battle unfold outside. More drones appeared, firing relentlessly at the shuttle. Harris fired back through the open hatch, taking out several before the recoil nearly knocked him off his feet. "We're not going to last much longer," he shouted. Melissa gritted her teeth, pushing the shuttle to its limits. She dodged blasts of energy and evaded grasping claws, her skill as a pilot keeping them alive for now. But the constructs were relentless, coordinating their attacks with terrifying precision. Then, a miracle. A familiar shape appeared on the horizon, the USS Dauntless. Captain Lewis must have seen the signal and sent reinforcements. Fighter jets streaked past the shuttle, engaging the enemy with devastating firepower. Explosions lit up the sky as drones and constructs were torn apart. "We're clear," Melissa announced, steering the shuttle toward the safety of the Dauntless. The team slumped in their seats, exhausted but alive. When they docked, Captain Lewis greeted them personally. His expression was grim as he surveyed the battered shuttle and weary crew. "Report," he ordered, his voice sharp. Ryan stepped forward, his mind racing to summarize everything they'd discovered. "Sir, we found evidence of an advanced alien civilization on Xerxes -9. They were wiped out by an unknown force, likely the same ones responsible for the attack on Proxima Centauri. These attackers are highly advanced and extremely dangerous. But we managed to retrieve data that might help us understand their technology and possibly fight back." Captain Lewis nodded slowly, absorbing the information. "Good work, Lieutenant. Get that data to Dr. Bennett immediately. We'll debrief once you've rested." As the team dispersed, Ryan caught Claire's arm. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, though her hand still trembled. "I'm fine. Just shaken. Those things, they're unlike anything we've ever faced." Ryan sighed, feeling the weight of their situation settle over him. "Yeah, and we're running out of time to figure them out." Back aboard the Dauntless, Claire worked tirelessly to analyze the data. Hours turned into days as she pieced together fragments of alien code and translated cryptic messages. What she uncovered was both fascinating and horrifying. The civilization on Xerxes 9 had indeed been destroyed by an external force, a species known only as the Scourge. According to the records, the Scourge believed that any species capable of interstellar travel posed a threat to their existence. Their solution was simple and brutal: extermination. "They don't negotiate," Claire explained to Ryan during a late-night briefing. "They don't conquer, they obliterate. Entire worlds, entire civilizations, gone without warning or mercy." Ryan sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. "So we're dealing with fanatics. Creatures who see themselves as judges, jury, and executioners." "Exactly," Claire confirmed. "And based on the trajectory of their attacks, they're heading straight for Earth." The realization hit Ryan like a punch to the gut. Humanity's survival depended on stopping the Scourge. But how? Could they truly defeat an enemy so ruthless and powerful? Or would they end up like the people of Xerxes 9, reduced to nothing but ruins and memories? For now, there were no answers, only questions. And time was running out. The mood aboard the USS Dauntless was somber. News of the Scourge spread quickly among the crew, fueling fear and uncertainty. Conversations in the corridors grew hushed, and even the most seasoned soldiers carried a sense of dread. Captain Lewis called an emergency meeting with his senior officers to discuss their next steps. Ryan, Claire, Melissa, and Commander Monroe gathered in the briefing room, each carrying the weight of what they had learned. Captain Lewis stood at the head of the table, his expression grave. "We know who or what we're dealing with now," he began, addressing the group. "Dr. Bennett's analysis confirms that the Scourge are responsible for the attack on Proxima Centauri and likely many other incidents we've dismissed as anomalies over the years. They see any advanced civilization as a threat, and their solution is annihilation. Claire nodded, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. From what I've decoded, the Scourge don't engage in diplomacy or negotiation. Their philosophy is simple: destroy first, ask questions never. If we want to survive, we need to prepare for total war. Commander Monroe leaned forward, his sharp eyes scanning the faces around the table. Then that's exactly what we'll give them, he said coldly. They think they can wipe us out? Let's show them why humanity fights back. Ryan frowned, unable to stay silent. Sir, with respect, if we respond with the same level of brutality, aren't we just proving their point? If we become like them, mindlessly destructive, what makes us any better? Monroe shot him a hard look. Lieutenant, this isn't about morality. It's about survival. You can't reason with something that doesn't value life. Sometimes you have to meet force with force. And where does that leave us? Ryan countered. If we abandon our principles, we lose sight of who we are. We'll be no different from them. The argument hung in the air, unresolved. Captain Lewis raised a hand to silence both men. Enough. This isn't the time for debate. Our priority is protecting Earth and the colonies. Dr. Bennett, how close are you to reverse engineering their technology? Claire hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I've made progress, but it's slow going. Their systems are incredibly complex, far beyond anything we've encountered before. However, I believe we can adapt some of their energy signatures into weapons capable of penetrating their defenses. It won't be easy, though. Do whatever it takes, Lewis ordered. Time is not on our side. In the days that followed, the Dauntless became a hive of activity. Engineers worked around the clock to implement Claire's designs, while tactical teams drilled relentlessly under Monroe's watchful eye. Ryan threw himself into training exercises, determined to contribute. However, he could. But the more he saw of humanity's preparations, the heavier his doubts weighed on him. He couldn't shake the feeling that responding with violence would only perpetuate the cycle of destruction. Melissa noticed his unease during one of their practice sessions. She approached him after the drill ended, wiping sweat from her brow. "You've got that look again," she said bluntly. "What's eating at you now?" Ryan sighed, lowering his weapon. "It's just, all this focus on fighting feels wrong. Like we're rushing headfirst into something without thinking it through." Melissa crossed her arms, studying him. "You think there's another way?" "I don't know," Ryan admitted. "But if we go down this path, we risk becoming the very thing we're trying to stop. Is that really worth it?" Melissa didn't answer right away. Instead, she glanced toward the viewport, where stars streaked past in streaks of light. "Maybe you're right," she said finally. "But tell me this, when those things come for us, and they will, what choice do we have? Stand aside and let them burn everything we've built?" Her question struck a nerve, leaving Ryan speechless. Before he could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Both of them rushed to the bridge, where Captain Lewis was already issuing orders. "We've detected multiple enemy ships approaching Sector 17, Lewis announced. "Admiral Hayes has authorized a preemptive strike against suspected Scourge strongholds. The fleet is assembling as we speak." Ryan felt his stomach drop. A preemptive strike meant attacking first, without waiting for the Scourge to make a move. It was aggressive, risky, and exactly the kind of tactic he feared would escalate the conflict. "This is a mistake," Ryan said, stepping forward. "Attacking blindly could provoke them further. We should focus on defense, not offense." Monroe stepped closer, his tone icy. "With respect, Lieutenant, your idealism is getting in the way. Waiting for them to hit us again isn't an option. We need to take the fight to them before they reach Earth." Ryan clenched his fists, frustration bubbling inside him. "And what happens when we miss? When innocent lives are caught in the crossfire? Are we prepared to live with that?" Before Monroe could retort, Captain Lewis intervened. "Enough. The decision has been made. "Lieutenant Carter, I expect you to follow orders like everyone else." Ryan swallowed his protests, knowing there was no point arguing further. Still, as the Dauntless joined the Armada preparing for battle, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The fleet arrived at Sector 17, a remote region of space believed to house a Scourge staging ground. Ships formed. A tight formation, weapons primed and ready. Tension crackled through the com channels as pilots awaited the command to engage. Ryan manned his station, monitoring sensors for any sign of movement. Beside him, Melissa sat poised at the helm. Her hands steady on the controls. "Contact," someone called out. Dozens of Scourge vessels appeared on the scanners, emerging from hyperspace like ghosts. They moved with eerie precision, surrounding the human fleet in moments. "All units, open fire." Admiral Hayes' voice boomed over the comms. The battle erupted instantly. Bright beams of energy crisscrossed the void, illuminating the darkness with deadly light. Explosions rocked nearby ships as drones swarmed the fleet, targeting weak points and disabling shields. Melissa maneuvered the Dauntless expertly, dodging blasts and returning fire with equal ferocity. Ryan focused on relaying coordinates to the gunners, his heart pounding as chaos unfolded around him. Despite their efforts, the humans were outnumbered and outmatched. Scourge constructs tore through the formation, crippling ships with devastating efficiency. One by one, vessels fell silent, their crews lost to the void. Ryan watched helplessly as friends and comrades disappeared from the roster, their names vanishing forever. Then disaster struck. A massive construct locked onto the Dauntless, unleashing a barrage of concentrated energy. Shields faltered and alarms screamed as hull breaches threatened to rip the ship apart. "We can't hold them off much longer," Melissa shouted, her voice strained. "Orders, Captain?" Lewis hesitated, torn between retreat and continuing the assault. Finally, he gave the order. "Fall back. Regroup at Rally Point Alpha." As the fleet limped away, Ryan slumped into his seat, overwhelmed by guilt and grief. Countless lives had been lost in a single engagement, and for what? They hadn't even confirmed whether Sector 17 was truly a Scourge stronghold. All they'd done was prove how unprepared they were. Later, in the aftermath of the failed mission, Ryan confronted Monroe in the observation deck. The commander stared out at the stars, his jaw tight with frustration. "You were right," Ryan said quietly, "about needing to fight back. But this wasn't the answer." Monroe turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "And what would you have done differently, Lieutenant? Sat back and waited for them to slaughter us all?" "No," Ryan replied firmly, "but maybe there's another way. Something none of us has thought of yet." Monroe studied him for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Fine, show me your plan. Convince me you're not just talking nonsense." Ryan took a deep breath, knowing this was his chance to change the course of the war. "I don't have all the answers," he admitted. "But I do know one thing. If we keep acting like them, we'll lose ourselves completely. There has to be a way to break the cycle, to find a solution that doesn't involve mutual destruction." For the first time, Monroe didn't argue. Instead, he gestured toward the door. "Then let's get to work. Because if you're wrong, humanity won't get a second chance." The days following the disastrous battle at Sector 17 were grim. The human fleet limped back to a nearby outpost, battered and broken. Ships that had once gleamed with pride now bore scars of war hull breaches, patched hastily, weapons systems offline, and crews mourning their losses. Morale plummeted as survivors struggled to process the scale of defeat. Captain Lewis called another meeting in the briefing room, this time with a smaller group consisting of Ryan, Claire, Melissa, Monroe, and a few key engineers. "We can't keep doing this," Lewis said bluntly, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "Every skirmish weakens us further while they barely seem affected. Their technology is too advanced, Their tactics too precise. We're losing. Claire nodded, her expression somber. I've been analyzing the data from the battle. Their ships are faster, stronger, and more adaptable than ours. Even with the modifications I've made to our weapons, we're still outmatched. Monroe leaned forward, his usual confidence replaced by frustration. Then what do you suggest? Sitting around until they come knocking on Earth's doorstep? Ryan stepped in before things escalated. There's another option, he said carefully, drawing everyone's attention. We infiltrate one of their motherships. Silence filled the room. Melissa raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over her face. You want us to walk straight into enemy territory? That's suicide. Not if we plan it carefully. Ryan countered. If we can disable their central AA core, the system controlling their fleets, we might be able to cripple their operations. It's risky, but it's better than throwing wave after wave of ships at them and getting slaughtered. Claire's eyes lit up with cautious optimism. He's right. If we could access their core, we'd have a chance to study their systems directly and maybe even disrupt their command structure. Lewis rubbed his temples, weighing the proposal. It's insane. But so far, nothing else has worked. Fine. Start putting together a team. Make it small stealth over firepower. The infiltration mission was assembled quickly but meticulously. Ryan led the strike force, which included Claire for her technical expertise, Melissa as the pilot, Monroe for tactical support, and 2 additional soldiers, Corporal Jenkins and Private Morales. They loaded onto a stealth shuttle modified to evade Scourge sensors, its sleek design blending seamlessly into the darkness of Space Dot as they approached the designated mothership. Tension crackled through the cramped cabin. Melissa guided the shuttle silently toward the massive vessel, its biomechanical surface pulsing faintly with alien energy. Up close, it looked less like a ship and more like a living organism, its surface covered in shifting plates and glowing veins. This thing gives me the creeps, Jenkins muttered under his breath, clutching his rifle tightly. Stay focused, Monroe snapped. One wrong move and we're dead. Melissa brought the shuttle to a halt near a maintenance hatch, deploying magnetic clamps to secure their position. This is as far as I go, she said, glancing at Ryan. Good luck. Ryan nodded, gripping his weapon firmly. Let's move. The team disembarked, moving cautiously across the smooth metallic surface of the mothership. Claire used her scanner to locate a weak point in the hull, a vent large enough for them to squeeze through. Using cutting tools, they breached the outer layer and slipped inside. The interior was unlike anything they'd ever seen. Organic tubes lined the walls, pulsating rhythmically as though alive. Strange fluids dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the floor in iridescent puddles. The air was thick with a faint hum, vibrating through their bones. This place feels wrong, Morales whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Focus, Ryan urged quietly. Stick to the plan. Claire consulted her tablet, cross-referencing the schematic she'd pieced together from the Xerxes 9 data. The core should be 3 levels down. There's a maintenance shaft here that'll take us closer. They moved swiftly, sticking to the shadows and avoiding patrols of biomechanical drones. Each step felt heavier than the last, the oppressive atmosphere pressing down on them. At one point, Jenkins froze, spotting movement ahead. A drone hovered momentarily, its red sensors scanning the area. Monroe held up a hand, signaling the team to stay still. After what felt like an eternity, the drone drifted away, leaving them in silence once more. Finally, they reached the maintenance shaft. Claire hacked into a control panel, overriding the security protocols to open the passage. One by one, they climbed inside, descending deeper into the heart of the ship. When they emerged on the lower level, they found themselves in a vast chamber dominated by a towering structure, the central AI core. Glowing tendrils snaked outward, connecting it to countless conduits and terminals. The air shimmered with energy, making it hard to focus. "This is it," Claire breathed, awe evident in her voice. "If we can disable this, we might shut down their entire operation." "Then let's hurry," Monroe growled, taking up a defensive position near the entrance. "We don't know how long we've got." Claire set to work immediately, attaching her equipment to the core and running diagnostics. Her fingers flew over her tablet, decoding the alien language and searching for vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, Ryan kept watch, his weapon trained on the doorway. Jenkins and Morales flanked him, ready to respond to any threat. Minutes ticked by, agonizingly slowly. Just as Claire began inputting commands to initiate a shutdown sequence, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed, bathing everything in an ominous glow. "They know we're here," Monroe shouted, raising his rifle. Drones poured into the room, firing relentlessly. The team scattered, returning fire as best they could. Jenkins took cover behind a console, laying down suppressive fire, while Morales hurled grenades to create distractions. Ryan spotted a construct lumbering toward Claire, its massive claws poised to strike. Without hesitation, he sprinted forward, tackling her out of harm's way just as the claw slammed into the ground where she'd been standing moments earlier. "Keep working," he yelled, rolling to his feet and firing at the construct's joints. Monroe barked orders, directing the team's efforts. Despite being outnumbered, they managed to hold their ground, buying Claire precious seconds to finish her task. Sweat dripped down her face as she typed furiously, her hands shaking but determined. "I'm in," she exclaimed suddenly. "Initiating shutdown." The core pulsed violently, tendrils retracting as the energy flow began to falter. The drones froze mid-motion, their systems disrupted. For a brief moment, the chamber fell silent. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of collapsing entirely, the core emitted a low-frequency pulse, resonating through the ship. Images flickered to life on nearby screen scenes of devastation. Worlds reduced to ash, civilizations wiped out without mercy. Then came a new image. A humanoid figure, its features obscured but unmistakably intelligent. It spoke in a language none of them understood, yet the tone conveyed urgency. "What's it saying?" Ryan asked, lowering his weapon cautiously. Claire adjusted her translator, trying to decipher the message. "It's warning us," she said slowly. "About themselves, about why they destroy." Monroe frowned. "Why would they warn us? Aren't they the ones attacking us?" "They see themselves as protectors," Claire explained, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Centuries ago, their own species was nearly wiped out by another race. Now they believe any civilization capable of interstellar travel poses a threat. To prevent history from repeating, they eradicate potential dangers preemptively." Ryan stared at the screen, his mind racing. "So they're not monsters, they're scared." "Like us," Monroe shook his head. "Fear doesn't excuse genocide." "No," Ryan agreed, "but it explains it. And maybe there's a way to change their minds." Before anyone could respond, the core pulsed again, this time emitting a distress signal. The construct that had attacked earlier reactivated, advancing toward them with renewed purpose. Monroe stepped forward, placing himself between the creature and the rest of the team. "Go," he ordered sharply. "Get out of here while you still can." Ryan hesitated, torn between retreating and staying to help. "Sir, that's an order, Lieutenant," Monroe snapped, his voice firm. "Save yourselves. End this cycle." Without waiting for a response, Monroe charged at the construct, drawing its attention away from the others. Ryan clenched his jaw, forcing himself to turn away. "Let's move," he shouted, ushering the team toward the exit dot as they fled. Explosions rocked the chamber behind them. By the time they reached the shuttle, Monroe was gone, sacrificed to give them a fighting chance. Melissa greeted them with grim determination. piloting the craft away from the mothership as it began to destabilize. Back aboard the Dauntless, Ryan relayed everything they'd learned to Captain Lewis and Admiral Hayes. The revelation about the Scourge's motivations sparked heated debates among the leadership. Some argued that humanity should retaliate with full force, while others saw an opportunity to negotiate, a chance to prove that not all advanced civilizations were threats. For Ryan, the choice was clear. Violence had only led to more violence, perpetuating a cycle of destruction. If humanity wanted to survive and thrive, it needed to show the Scourge a different path. A path built on understanding, not annihilation, but convincing others wouldn't be easy. The scars of war ran deep, and trust was in short supply. As the fleet regrouped, Ryan prepared to make his case, not just to his superiors, but to humanity itself. The debate aboard the USS Dauntless raged long into the night. Admiral Hayes paced the briefing room, his expression stormy as he listened to arguments from both sides. Some officers insisted that humanity should strike back with everything it had, determined to avenge their losses and protect Earth at all costs. Others, inspired by Ryan's account of the Scourge's motivations, argued for a different approach, an attempt at communication. Ryan stood at the center of the chaos, feeling the weight of every eye in the room on him. He knew what was at stake. If he couldn't convince them to try diplomacy, the cycle of destruction would continue until one side or both was wiped out entirely. "Admiral," Ryan began, his voice steady despite the tension in the air, "I understand why so many of us want revenge. We've lost friends, family, entire colonies. But if we respond with the same brutality as the Scourge, we're no better than they are. They see themselves as protectors, acting out of fear. What if we show them there's another way? What if we prove that not all advanced civilizations are threats?" Hayes stopped pacing and turned to face him, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. "And how do you propose we do that, Lieutenant? Send them a message saying we come in peace? After everything they've done, you think they'll listen?" Ryan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "We don't have to start with words. Actions speak louder. Let's deactivate our weapons systems near their ships, a gesture of goodwill. Show them we're willing to take a risk. And then, let's broadcast a message. Not just any message, but something personal. Something human." Claire stepped forward, supporting Ryan's idea. "It could work," she said. "From what I've analyzed, their central AI processes information quickly, but it also adapts based on new data. If we present ourselves differently, show them we value life instead of destruction, they might reconsider their stance." Hayes sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. "This is insane," he muttered, "but fine. Do it. If this fails, though, the blood will be on your hands, Carter." Ryan nodded solemnly. "Understood, sir." The plan was set into motion within hours. The Dauntless, accompanied by a small fleet, approached the edge of known Scourge territory. Melissa piloted the ship cautiously, ensuring they remained visible but non-threatening. Weapons systems were powered down completely, leaving the fleet vulnerable. Tension crackled through the bridge as everyone waited for a response. For what felt like an eternity, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Scourge vessels emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the human fleet. Their biomechanical constructs loomed ominously, weapons trained on the defenseless ships. Ryan held his breath, wondering if they'd made a fatal mistake. Finally, a transmission came through, not in words, but in images and sounds. Alien symbols flickered across the screens, accompanied by a low, resonant hum. Claire worked quickly to translate the message. "They're asking why we're here," she explained, her fingers flying over her tablet. "They want to know if this is some kind of trick." Ryan took a deep breath and activated the comm system. "Tell them we're not here to fight," he instructed Claire. "Tell them we've seen what they've done, but we also understand why. Tell them we're different." Claire typed furiously, encoding their response into a format the Scourge could interpret. Moments later, the alien ships shifted slightly, their movements uncertain. Another transmission came through, this time more detailed. The images showed scenes of devastation, their own homeworlds burning, their people fleeing in terror. It was a plea, raw and desperate. "They're showing us their past," Claire whispered, her voice trembling. "Their pain." Ryan nodded, his resolve strengthening. "Let's show them ours." He signaled for the crew to play a series of recordings, compiled from Earth's history, images of wars, natural disasters, and suffering, followed by moments of hope, rebuilding, and unity. The message ended with a simple statement: "We are capable of change. Give us a chance." The silence that followed was unbearable. Everyone aboard the Dauntless braced for the worst, expecting the Scourge to open fire at any moment. Instead, the alien ships began to retreat, pulling back into formation. One vessel lingered behind, emitting a final transmission before vanishing into hyperspace. "They're considering it," Claire said, her eyes wide with disbelief. "They haven't attacked." "That means something." Hayes exhaled sharply, sinking into his chair. "You may have just bought us some time, Carter. Don't waste it." In the weeks that followed, humanity prepared for the possibility of further contact. Diplomats, scientists, and linguists worked tirelessly to craft a formal message to the Scourge, emphasizing peace and cooperation. Meanwhile, defenses were strengthened, just in case the truce proved temporary. Ryan found himself reflecting often on the mission, replaying each decision in his mind. Had they done enough? Could humanity truly break free from the cycle of violence? Doubts lingered, but so did hope. For the first time since the attacks began, there was a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. One evening, Ryan joined Claire in the observation deck, where they watched the stars streak past the viewport. "Do you think it'll work?" he asked quietly. "Do you think they'll trust us?" Claire shrugged, her gaze thoughtful. "I don't know. Trust takes time, especially after centuries of fear. But we gave them a reason to pause, and that's more than anyone expected." Ryan smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe that's enough. For now." As the days turned into months, signs of progress emerged. Scourge patrols became less aggressive, avoiding direct confrontation unless provoked. Fragments of communication hinted at curiosity rather than hostility. Slowly, painfully, a fragile understanding began to form. Humanity wasn't safe, yet not by a long shot. But for the first time, survival didn't seem like a zero-sum game. It wasn't about obliterating worlds or proving superiority. It was about finding common ground, even in the face of unimaginable differences. On the bridge of the USS Dauntless, Ryan stood beside Captain Lewis, watching as another Scourge vessel appeared on the horizon. This time, however, it didn't attack. Instead, it transmitted a single image, a symbol of connection, drawn in glowing lines. "They're reaching out," Claire announced, her voice filled with cautious optimism. Ryan nodded, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. "Then let's meet them halfway." And for the first time in a long time, humanity dared to believe that peace might be possible, even among the stars.